Stace, the recording and the streaming is going?
Recording is on, live stream is just starting right now.
Okay.
And I'm admitting everybody from the waiting room. You might just want to repeat yourself.
Okay, welcome to the March regular meeting of the Thomaston Planning and Zoning Commission. Seated for tonight's meeting will be Tom Mueller, Elizabeth Jamison, Bill Guerrera, Brian Davis, and myself, Ralph Salone. First on our agenda, we have a public information system. A public information session with a presentation and Q&A regarding the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments multi-jurisdictional national hazard mitigation plan from Dave Murphy of Mylona McBroom. Is he on?
Yes,
I'm here.
Yes. Okay. So Stace, you want to let him share his screen and we'll kick it off from there.
Okay. And
Looks like I'm, yep, good to go.
okay.
Actually, I think it just kicked me out of share screen. Let me try again. Now I think I'm back in.
Yep, you're in.
Great. Okay, everybody, thanks for having me tonight, and thank you so much for putting me first. I'm David Murphy from Mylona McBroom. Actually, now we're known as SLR Consulting. We were acquired a year ago, and I have forgotten to use the new logo. The rebrand took a year because of the pandemic, so we're slowly getting there. Anyway, we are working on an update of the hazard mitigation plan for the NVCOG region. And this is going to be the third time that the town of Thomaston has a hazard mitigation plan. Hopefully you've heard a little bit about it in the past or have been aware of it existing. But I'm going to take you through a few slides just explaining what we're doing and what the next steps are. So we'll cover the purpose and need for the hazard mitigation plan. How can the plan be used? We'll review the hazards that are being addressed in the plan. We'll talk about some of the risks and loss estimates that we're talking about in the plan. And we will go through the types of hazard mitigation actions that we typically include in plans. We'll talk about the prior actions that were in Thomaston's plan 5-6 years ago, and then we'll just end with the next steps. So we'll be done in 20 minutes or so. So these plans are prepared as a result of the Disaster Mitigation Act, which is coming up on 21 years. I cannot believe it. And the goal of the act is to promote preparedness and to encourage communities to take actions to reduce losses from natural hazards. So the plan itself is kind of to be used for community planning, but it's also for eligibility for grant programs, which is really why folks like to have one in place. The 3 grant programs that the town would be eligible for to seek mitigation grants are from the Flood Mitigation Assistance, Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, and the new BRIC program, Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities. So those 3 grant programs are listed in the lower left-hand corner of this slide, and I'll talk about them a little bit more as we step through the slides. But in general, a lot of funding has been available to communities from these grant programs. We'll look at some examples as well in the next few minutes. So the plan is covering natural hazards. So these are wildfires, tornadoes, floods, etc. And hazard mitigation is a group of actions that we can undertake to reduce the damages and losses that occur. So a really good example of hazard mitigation would be elevating a building so that when a flood occurs, damage does not occur, or removing a building from a floodplain so that when a flood occurs, damage does not occur. Remember, this is a loss estimate reduction program, so it's getting at reducing losses. An example that's not exactly mitigation, but we like to mention it on this page is sandbags. So why are sandbags not as good as elevating a building? Well, we have to deploy them ourselves. So sometimes we're not available to, or the flood surprises us. And so that's not a sustained action in the sense that elevating a building might be. So here in Connecticut, most plans were developed 15 years ago or so. Local plans are updated every 5 years. Most of the initial plans in the NVCOG region, formerly the COG-CNV region, were developed between 2005 and 2011. That was, of course, also true for Thomaston. The most recent plans have largely expired. What's happening at this point is all 19 towns will become part of one new plan. So instead of the town of Thomaston having its own individual hazard mitigation plan, you'll have a chapter or an annex of the regional plan, which will have really all the same content. And then you won't need to administer it every 5 years as you would be if the COG had not taken it on. We met with the town's local planning team back in November. This winter has been flying by. I can't believe it's been that many months. This is a list of the local plan expirations for the 19 NVCOG towns. You can see Thomaston's about halfway down the list. So the plan did expire. Your current plan did expire about a year ago. That would really only be a big problem if the town had grants pending under those 3 grant programs. And I do not believe that you do. So you're probably in good shape. We are hoping to get this thing into FEMA soon so that lapses will be minimized going further. So the plan can be used for all these different kinds of, the grants can be used for all these different kinds of projects on the left-hand side. So building acquisitions, elevations, replacing culverts, drainage projects, riverbank stabilizations, etc. The last one on the list, standby power supplies, of course, is generators. These are the 5 top mitigation project types funded after plans were developed in the last 2 fiscal years before the one that just completed. I like to have these graphics up just to show that the category that really benefits Connecticut, which is utility and infrastructure protection, has been advancing up the list. More money is going to that category over time, which is good for the state. And just about a week ago, FEMA released its new update. And so that should appear on the screen next. And it's good to see that utility infrastructure protection is still number 3 on the list, up from number 5 a couple years ago. So good news for Connecticut. That's where we tend to get the money after natural hazards occur. Here's another example, property acquisitions in Southbury. So these are along the Pomperaug River, funded by FEMA. Here's an example from out of the region, but not too far away. $1 million drainage project in Brookfield, which was funded by FEMA because Brookfield had a hazard mitigation plan in place. Here's one. So this is obviously outside the region. It's in Western Massachusetts. It's a great example for New England, though, because a lot of towns do struggle with riverbank erosion and that sort of thing. So this is a good example of funds being used to stabilize a riverbank. We're including the same hazards in the plan as last time. It didn't make a lot of sense to make a lot of changes. So this is a list of the hazards that we're covering. And we are required by FEMA and by the state to also address climate change and the hazards that it does affect. So the top, the top 2/3 of this list can be impacted by climate change, whereas earthquakes and landslides and sinkholes would be less affected. So just stepping through these real quick. Floods, so we're covering riverine floods that largely occur along rivers. And we've got some pictures from the NVCOG region, although none of these are directly from Thomaston. We're also covering flash floods. These are good examples from a kind of a really intense rainstorm in Waterbury about 10 years ago. And ice jams, which do affect the region, in particular Southbury. The plan will also cover hurricanes and tropical storms, which we are no strangers to. Summer storms, tornadoes, high wind events, such as those that occurred in 2018. We had a couple tornado microburst episodes in the state. Severe winter storms, which we like to think of as being relatively routine, but we don't always have situations where buildings are collapsing like we did in 2011. Plan will cover dam failure, which we're fortunate to not experience much. Wildfires, which are more frequent than we like to think, but they typically don't get out of control. These are pictures from the Republican American. Earthquakes, which are infrequent, or I should say large ones are infrequent, small ones are actually fairly frequent. And then in the NVCOG region, we're covering landslides and sinkholes for some towns, especially Waterbury, Shelton, had a lot of challenges with steep slopes. The bottom left picture there is a home that was removed in Shelton because it was in danger of collapsing. The bottom right picture is from Waterbury. And the sinkhole issue is very unique to Cheshire with the former barite mines. So as I noted, we're required to incorporate the effects of climate change in the plan update. So some of the things that you've probably heard over the past few years, average temperatures are increasing, heat episodes may increase, that could change growing seasons. Those things alone don't necessarily change the hazards, but if you think about some of the things on this next slide, precipitation events are expected to become more intense. Winter precipitation may be less snow and more ice and rain. The winter season will be a little bit shorter, but when snow could be heavier, which of course was a problem back in 2011 with the buildings that collapsed, and the flashy droughts that could occur. And we almost had a flashy drought, kind of started to have one in 2020, which caused some problems for some water companies. So some of the work that's been done in the past few months, we've been characterizing the risks. Really, this is an update, remember, so we're looking at some of the resources that we already had in place. The state has a mitigation plan, FEMA flood maps, and then there's other sources of data such as the NCEI, which includes a lot of storm-related tornado and winter storm loss estimates are in there. After declared disasters, a lot of towns submit for public assistance reimbursements, so we have access to those numbers. National Flood Insurance Program claims, the repetitive loss property lists, and then of course the input that we get when we meet with the towns when we start the planning process. So we use all that to kind of characterize the risks, see if anything's changed. Here's just a kind of a profile of the flood insurance policies in the region. As you have probably realized at this point, flooding is a big part of this plan. It's not the only thing in the plan, but it's kind of a big part of it. So there's only 8 flood insurance policies in force in Thomaston, which is not that many. And it really doesn't mean that there's no flood risk. It means that it's kind of a reflection of home ownership. So if you own a mortgage and you're in a floodplain, you have to buy flood insurance. But if you own your home outright, you can drop flood insurance. So oftentimes the number kind of reflects that sort of thing. Just some these bar graphs are helpful to see, Thomaston, where it fits in among other towns. It's kind of one of the lower bars in the bar graph. We're also looking at critical facilities, historic and cultural resources.
I'm here.
Say that again?
That's one of our members just letting us know she's here.
Oh, okay. We're also looking at critical facilities, historic and cultural resources, built infrastructure at large. I mentioned the repetitive loss properties. We looked at the list. This is kind of a map of the properties in the region. So you can see the couple that are in Thomaston are in that one dot together. But some towns like Beacon Falls don't have any, Prospect doesn't have any. Critical facilities, this is kind of just a map of the region showing a lot of the critical facilities. A lot of them are concentrated in the urban areas or along the Route 8 corridor, for example, but all the towns have EOCs, police, fire shelters, etc. So the plan will be profiling which ones of those are located in flood zones and wildfire risk areas and other areas of risk. Historic and cultural resources. This is something that actually in the past we did not include in hazard mitigation plans. The State Historic Preservation Office said, we'd really like to see historic resources treated more directly in hazard mitigation plans because it's hard to reduce the risk of a house that's listed in the historic register because you can't just elevate it without reducing its historic characteristics. So there's a unique need there. And so we're getting better at including those in the plans.
Yeah, shouldn't there be more listed in Thomaston?
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, so one thing about this is something that I'm glad this came up. The New Haven and Fairfield counties, the 4 southern counties have really good GIS mapping of historic resources, and the northern counties do not. Remember, NVCOG is split between the northern and southern counties. So the GIS mapping isn't as good for Thomaston, but it may very well be that we don't have them all here. So if any of you have kind of a really good list and would like to share it with us, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, the one dot that's on the screen there is not really fair. So I'm getting near the end. I know you guys probably want to move on to other things. There's 6 categories of hazard mitigation actions that we typically include in the plan. This has not changed. The last version of the plan had the same 6 categories. Here they are on the screen. So they're pretty self-explanatory. Structural projects are like replacing bridges. Property protection might be elevating a home. Emergency services is making sure people can get to the shelter during a flood. Public education is exactly what it sounds like. Natural resource protection could be setting aside open space in a floodplain. I think the one that's kind of a misnomer or can be confusing is prevention. So it doesn't mean preventing the hazard. That's kind of hard to do. It means preventing the damage. So a really good example of prevention is building codes and regulations. So if you take those 6 categories and you just apply them to one hazard, kind of do the multiplication, you can see how you can sort of have an infinite number of actions to put in a hazard mitigation plan. So here's flooding, only flooding, but those same 6 categories, here's 3 of them. So structural projects, you kind of have a whole list of things that fall under that. So replacing bridges, removing obstructions, creating floodways, et cetera. Under property protection, you have your floodproofing, your elevating buildings, et cetera, anchoring tanks that can float away. And then under prevention, you have your zoning, your plan of conservation development, freeboard, low impact development, the things that reduce the damage that could occur during an event. And then the second 3 of the 6 categories, so natural resources protection. So this could be acquiring, preserving floodplain land, increasing wetland storage. A big one that's really being tested now a lot is reconnecting streams to their floodplains, kind of taking berms and walls away. Under emergency services, you can see building capacities, establishing shelters, making sure shelters have generators. That all sort of falls into that category. And then under public education, we have all the things that typically you're all familiar with from being involved with town government. So newsletters, meetings, information, kiosks, pamphlets in the library, et cetera. So that's just flooding. If you take, I usually have another slide that shows other kinds of actions that can be made from the 6 categories. In the interest of time, I sort of took it out and wanted to go straight to the town's previous actions. So I've got 2 pages here. There's only 24 actions, which is great. In the town's first hazard mitigation plan, I think you had 40 or 45, which is frankly too many. In the update that was completed 6 years ago, we really ratcheted that down to 24 actions. And I'll go through them, just one by one. And I think maybe what we'll do, I'll read through all of them. And then if you guys want to kind of talk through some of them, we can do that. In the right-hand column, I put some of the outcomes that we heard when we met with the town back in November. And I'm being a little bit tricky here. The ones that we didn't exactly know the outcome of, or we weren't really sure how much progress had been made, or that might be carried forward, I left them blank so that I wouldn't kind of, I wouldn't box you into an answer. But the ones that we thought were complete, I went ahead and put that in the table. So there was an action about adding pages to the town website, preparedness. There was one about pursuing new generators for town hall and a pumping station. There's one about encouraging people to purchase NOAA weather radios. Oh my gosh, so much has changed in the past 6 years. The way we get information, that one seems really dated at this point. We've all got mobile phones. We keep them charged pretty well. Fourth one down is acquiring open space properties within the floodplains. That acronym, Special Flood Hazard Area, SFHA, is a FEMA term. Install drainage systems on a couple roads, coordinate with DOT about a swale along Route 6. This is one that we heard about in both previous editions of the Hazard Mitigation Plan. There's one about pursuing funding for stormwater improvements along Hotchkiss. There's one about working with the state local bridge program, Walnut Hill Road. There's one about making sure that if the brownfields are redeveloped, it's consistent with local flood regulations. There's one about Northfield Brook. There's an action about making sure that evacuation plans are viable and make sense and are posted and available to people. There's one about wind damage there on the bottom there, and that one's really geared towards new town facilities, so like a new school or a new emergency operations center or a new shelter. Moving on to the next page, there's one about educational materials for reducing damage during winter storms. There's one about people reminding them about dangers of cold weather. which is frankly what, a lot of your departments probably do anyway when they deal with the public on winter related issues. There's one about snow removal plans. This one came about after the events of 2011 that caused a lot of damage, February and October of that year. Fourth one down is about having adequate backup facilities in case of earthquake damage, but backup facilities can be used really to get you through any event. There's one kind of, it's for earthquakes, bracing systems for assets and equipment inside critical facilities. What's been happening instead of people kind of bracing their IT systems is everyone's backing up to the cloud. So that's kind of one that is becoming kind of a dated, older action that we don't need. Then we move on to a couple actions about dams, making sure that dam failure flood areas are in a database, making sure that DEP is working correctly on hazard class assessments, making sure copies of the emergency action plans are on file. Then there's a couple about wildfires. So working with the water company to extend the system where fire protection is needed, making sure the water company has adequate pressure and upgrading when needed. And then there's one about making sure that there's dry hydrants, cisterns, et cetera, available where there isn't public water system coverage. And then finally, kind of exploring other solutions when nothing else really makes sense, such as hydrants, dry hydrants, fire ponds, et cetera. So I'll just tell you what the next step is, then we'll kind of talk about these actions. So we've got a survey that's still open. This is a link right here. I can also put a link in the chat box and make sure that the town has it available. You can also always go to the NVCOG webpage. The website has a whole page for this project with a lot of information on it, including a copy of the previous plan, the link to the survey, and the link to the story map. So this is a graphic on the bottom here and a screenshot from the story map you can look at to provide input on the plan as well. So we've got a lot of ways to get input, and what we're doing tonight is really just one of them. So with that, I will check the time, and it's 7:25, perfect. That's what I wanted, and we can have an open discussion. I can answer any questions about the plan, previous plan, or the grant programs that are in place, or any of the actions.
So my first question is, will you make this presentation available to us through Stacy? Because you did go through it kind of quickly.
Yeah, no, I that's definitely something that I would like to do. I know I try to keep this to less than half an hour, but that makes it feel a little bit rushed. I'll send Stacy a copy.
Thanks. Well, Stacy, shall we walk through the open actions and discuss them?
If you would like, that's certainly fine.
So the first one, add pages to the town website. The only time I ever go to the town website is to look up phone numbers. I haven't looked to see if there's anything dedicated to hazard mitigation. Do you happen to know offhand?
I would say that could be beefed up. There's some stuff, but I think it could be beefed up.
Okay, noted. I think we determined that the generators were not purchased, the two that were listed quite yet.
I recall, I think was the outcome of that meeting, yeah. I know that our facilities person has been doing some investigating for the town hall, but I'm not sure where the status of that is.
Hey, Stacy, this is Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Because Woodbridge Lane has undergone a significant resurfacing of its roads, and the sewer plant has also been upgraded. I don't know if a result of the upgrade to the sewer plant on Woodbridge, whether or not a generator was also part of that change.
The pump station, when we met in November, there was a question that I don't know if you had heard back from Ed Moan, our first selectman, Dave.
I don't think that we heard back yet, but I know you were going to be checking on that.
Yeah, because there was the upgrade to the Woodbridge pump station, but he seemed uncertain whether that included a generator. Would you happen to know, Tom?
No, I'm not sure. I know the upgrade is in progress, but I'm not sure about the generator.
All right.
I think we thought it did not include the pump, the generator, but I can double check that with Ed.
And a couple of these, you know, I don't want everyone to feel like you're beholden to comment on all of them. Things like the NOAA weather radio, you know, we're going to be modernizing that kind of action, so that won't live on as worded. It will be changed to something that makes sense for the kind of the modern age.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you know, on that point, the town, at least a couple of years ago, was making use of the reverse 911 system.
Mhm.
However, I haven't gotten any notifications through that system in a long time, like years. So I don't know if it's no longer being funded or if the town decided not to use that. But that is, I mean, you know, the NOAA weather radios are okay for a kind of a wider area disturbance, but you know, for town centric purposes, that reverse 911 system is or was really good.
Yeah, I agree. Those can be very useful. I'll check on that.
Because I think at least a few years ago, the state was funding it.
Yeah, and a lot of towns have moved on to other subscription services because there's been some competition like Code Red, but everyone kind of has at least one that they use. So, I mean, I can just kind of take us through some other ones. The one about setting aside open space, I think that's kind of, you know, always in the back of everyone's mind. If you guys have anything in particular that's of interest that's come up, you know, let me know. We can include it in the plan. It kind of could help position you for funding in the future as the grant programs come and go. I put in the comments here about the ones that I think were already completed or possibly underway, and those came straight out of the notes from the meeting with Stacy. So a couple of them might not be finished yet, but they're sort of underway and will be by the time the plan is in place. A couple of these, you know, a couple of them really are like the one about brownfields. If they're redeveloped in the floodplain, make sure they're consistent with local flood regulations. You're required to do that anyway. So I think the point of the action being in there is to kind of just keep on everyone's radar, but the action doesn't really, you know, change any outcome.
What's that comment about the Northfield Brook about possibly not needed any longer? What's the history behind that, Stacy?
I'm trying to remember.
I think it was that there was a bridge or culvert project in the same, you know, just upstream a little bit that might have addressed, or possibly downstream, that might have addressed the concern.
I think you're right. I think that was Glenn had mentioned. Yeah.
But if there's kind of a more global concern, you know, we could keep it in there, or we could also rephrase the action to be something that kind of addresses the brook, the watershed as a whole. So if that's of interest, we can do that in the plan.
I think we need to determine whether it should really be in there or not, based on what may have happened between when this was written and now.
Okay.
Ralph, I know
Yes.
the Walnut Hill originally connected to Litchfield Street, and there was a little strip of it that went over the Northfield Brook, and the bridge has been replaced over the Northfield Brook, but there was a whole what to do there thing for a while. I don't know if that's referring to that. I was just reading the continued work of the state of Connecticut local bridge. Is that what you were referring to? I'm not sure. I didn't see anything about the Northfield Brook in general. Oh, evaluate and determine if maintenance required to prevent potential. Okay. All right. Just below that. Sorry. Sure if that's
Sorry.
related together or not.
Anyway, Stace, if you could put that on your to-do list to follow
Yep.
up on that.
So maybe this first page is, mostly flood related. It kind of ends with a wind action, which frankly is consistent with the state building code anyway. So it might be
Yeah.
one that we don't need to carry forward.
I was going to say, anybody coming in for a building permit, he requires information on the wind load
Right.
so.
On this next page, we've got, so this is kind of where we're dealing with some of the other hazards. I would say, the group of them that's the most important on this page, well, in addition to just having backup facilities, but the ones related to dams, I mean, we would like to see at this point that the dam failure action plans are filed at the town hall and people know where to get them. And that we're still hearing from the towns that they aren't always on file or available. So working on
This
that.
is Bill. This is Bill. I happen to know with respect to, Class C are high hazard dams. And we don't have any town-owned high hazard dams. We do have one dam in Northfield. The Dystrom's Pond. There's a dike that's there, and that dike is in the process of getting funding to get repaired. And half of that pond sits in Litchfield, the other half in Thomaston. But years ago, our town fathers made the decision that the town would be responsible, Thomaston, for maintaining that dike, even though it's in Litchfield. So how's that? Yeah. So that's the only dam / dike that I'm aware of. The rest of them are Army Corps, as I recall. Is that right, Stacy? I mean, is that anything else ring a bell with you?
Well, I know, and maybe David can speak more to this, but I know there's more, maybe not to that size dams, but there's smaller dams that DEP requires us to take a peek at now.
Yeah, and there's dams that are owned by others who, and they're obligated to make sure that your emergency personnel are aware of their procedures. So
Yes, sir.
it's something that we could probably check on.
Yeah, we would hope that the Army Corps would advise if there was an imminent dam failure,
Right.
be facetious.
Yeah, Bill, you and I live pretty high up on the hill. I don't think it would bother us.
Yeah, that's right. I would but you're
Do
right. That's
The people on Treadwell might care a little more.
one thing that we'd like to do, when we have these meetings is really get your sense of whether you can think of any new actions. So I won't name any names, but a town that's located in the region that's not you, at the end of a meeting, they're like, yeah, we're good. We don't have any new actions. And that's fine. The plan should say what everybody wants it to say. But if you guys have any thoughts for new actions, I'm here to hear them. You can think about it, of course.
Yeah, I think, between bolstering the infrastructure in the shelters and I saw one on there was an evacuation plan. I'm not sure one exists for Thomaston if needed. But I think those kinds of things are the things we should probably look into a little deeper. I mean, I see one here, town should consider the construction of dry hydrants, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I don't see that happening without, a major infusion of grant money.
Right. Yep, and that's okay. I mean, this plan is to help position you for grants. So one important thing, and I didn't make this point, and I'm glad you brought this up, is that when you update the plan in 5 years, there's not a report card that comes out from FEMA that says, oh, you didn't do these actions. They understand that not everything can be funded, and so it's good to put things in the plan that even though they may not occur. And I see a spelling error that's very embarrassing in the middle of this page, analysis with 2 L's. I apologize for that. All right, well, this is, hopefully you can all go over and check the story map. And if you'd like, you can take the survey. Again, the links are available on the NVCOG website on the page that's specifically for this project. I'll also put the link to the survey in the chat in case you guys are chat users.
Actually, Aaron did that.
Oh, great. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Aaron. And
Yeah, and if you guys think of anything later that you want to have me forward to Dave, just let me know.
okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good evening. Okay.
All right, next on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes for the January 12th meeting and the February 3rd meeting. I'm sorry, the January 12th special meeting and the February 3rd regular meeting. Let's take them one at a time. Did everyone have a chance to review the special meeting minutes from January 12th?
They were very complicated.
Make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes as presented.
Is there a second? That was Tom Mueller, right? I don't think you identified yourself when
Correct.
you made them.
Correct.
Is there a second to the motion?
Bill Carrera.
Any motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right. Tom Mueller, how do you vote on the motion?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Elizabeth Jamison, how do you vote?
Elizabeth Jamison, abstain.
Bill Guerrera, how do you vote?
Bill Carrera, aye.
And Brian Davis, how do you vote?
Brian Davis abstained. I was not present.
And Ralph Salone votes aye. So motion passes with 2 abstentions. Shall we move on to the February regular meeting minutes?
Tom Mueller, I make a motion to approve the February 3rd meeting minutes as presented.
Is there a second to the motion?
Elizabeth Jamison, I'll second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, Tom Mueller, how do you vote on the motion?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Elizabeth Jamison, how do you vote?
Elizabeth Jamison, aye.
Brian Davis, how do you vote?
Brian Davis, aye.
And Bill Guerrera, how do you vote?
Bill Carrera, abstain. I was not seated for that meeting.
And Ralph Salone votes aye. So motion passes with 1 abstention. All right, next on our agenda, under old business, we have draft amendments to erosion and sedimentation controls and an addition of low impact development and stormwater management regulations required per the MS4 general permit. Stacy, what do you have for us on that?
Okay, bear with me 1 second where I find it in my 50,000 open windows. Here we go. Which one would you like to start with?
How about whatever's
stormwater?
easiest?
Okay, here we go. Hang on a minute. I am not sure why it's not showing me. Hang on a second. There we go. Okay. So this is the erosion and sedimentation controls and the stormwater management. This was emailed around to you last week because I knew it was a little light reading for you. So I did forward it also. I haven't forwarded it to our engineer yet, but I have forwarded it to Steve Byrne with some minor comments. He was just fine with the changes. As with any new definition, any new sections of the regs, they come with their particular definitions. So these are definition, some tweaks, and then some completely new ones, like for instance, earth disturbing activities and sedimentation and accelerated erosion. And a deletion here simply because it's more of a requirement of our sediment control plan rather than a definition of what it is. So this got taken out, but there's more detail on it in the actual body of the reg. Also includes an update to the definition of inspection because I was looking at inspection in terms of the fact that there are ENS inspections that I do, but there's also a variety of other types of inspections that I do. So it was more in the nature of making sure it covers everything that I do. Then these are the definitions for the stormwater management related area. And pretty much since this is a completely new section, it's completely new definitions. So there's the definition of development, a definition of impervious surface, an impervious surface ratio, low impact development, pervious surface, stormwater management plan, stormwater runoff, stormwater treatment, and then we mentioned wetlands in the regulations, but we've never actually had a definition, and this was as good a place as any to put it, so here you go. Now, having had all those definitions, we go into, as I mentioned, while we're doing a lot of these, I'm kind of reorganizing things to put things together where it seems to make sense for them to be. So in the renovated renumbering, this would actually wind up being Article 8. And performance standards all are the same as what they are currently. Sedimentation and erosion control, right now you just list the bond, which obviously is important, but we wanted more information in there. So that you weren't like having your eyes blinded by a ton of red writing, I just put all new A through D. So A, B, C, and D are all new language. And any earth disturbing activity in Thomaston shall consider the problem of accelerated erosion and sedimentation and shall address such potential problem in accordance with the standards outlined, referring back to the guidelines for soil erosion and sedimentation control 2002, as may be amended from time to time, available for inspection in the building and land use office. And that's pretty much the definitive Bible for us in terms of sedimentation and erosion control. And then specifically listing what is required on the plan. But let me back up a little bit. Any development activity which will result in a cumulative disturbed area of more than 1/2 acre, which is the same as what you have right now, as determined by land use staff according to topographical conditions of the property, shall prepare and submit a soil erosion and sedimentation control as provided below. And then these are the requirements. Now, I did change this. You currently require it at 1 inch equals 100, which is huge. So I wanted to be able to see it in more detail. So I looked around and this was more in line with what was standard. And then these list the things that should be on the plan. Such soil.
Right, does this say at a minimum should contain blah, blah, blah?
Okay. Showing the following detail unless an alternate plan is accepted. So the thing is that you'll know sometimes a plan, you want a full blown plan and, sometimes it's a smaller project and you don't necessarily. So this, I didn't want to make it a hard and fast, this is absolutely what must be. I
Sure.
wanted you to have a little bit of an out in case you needed it. So such soil erosion and sediment control plan shall contain proper provisions to adequately control accelerated erosion and sediment and reduce the danger from stormwater runoff on the proposed site and onto off-site neighboring properties during construction, and shall provide stabilization and protection from erosion and sedimentation when the project is completed. And then here we go into minimum acceptable standards. Soil erosion and sediment control plan shall result in a development that minimizes erosion and sedimentation during construction, is stabilized and protected for erosion when completed, and does not cause off-site erosion and/or sedimentation. Again, we refer back to the 2002 guidelines for soil erosion and sediment control. This is just allowing us the ability to get engineering calculations if we need them, if we want to make sure about the amount of stormwater runoff and are the drainage structures adequately sized to handle it. And then here's another little catch-all. Alternative design criteria, principles, and methods and practice may be used with the approval of the commission or its designated agent. So that's the additions to the erosion and sedimentation control. Plan review and approval. Okay. And this is where you can get your professional review. We can also use any other local, state, or federal agency, including, like the Northwest Conservation District, etc. Okay. Certification of the plan. I mean, you guys typically roll this in with a review of any application, but it actually is a part of your review to actually formally certify the ENS plan or deny it. So this just gives that information. Nothing lengthening the amount of time an application has. Obviously, we do want to keep bonding in there. And this part here is already in the regs. The red is new. Implementation. It shall be the responsibility of the developer to, 1, implement the approved plan or any revision thereto, install E&S measures and facilities as scheduled and as shown on the approved plan prior to the commencement of any site development activity, except as may be required to implement the plan. And 3, maintain the plan, measures, and facilities in effective condition to ensure compliance. And the commission or its agent may require the permittee to, 1, verify through progress reports and/or as-built surveys that soil erosion and sediment control measures and facilities have been performed or are properly installed according to the approved plan, or retain an inspector. You know, if we were to have a really complicated kind of, you know, or sensitive environmental area, you may determine that, you know what, we want an actual engineer going out and making periodic checks. This would allow you the right to do that. Commissioner or its agent is hereby authorized to withhold the issuance of zoning permits or the issuance of zoning certificates of compliance unless, in its judgment, accelerated erosion and sedimentation control measures have been complied with. And then inspections shall be made during development, which again, I already do, but it's just spelling it out. So that's the end of the erosion and sedimentation control section. This information, the health district is already in there in its own area. I'm just merging it into the same environmental regulations. And there's really not much to change here, just organizing it because it was kind of one big long run-on paragraph. And I just changed that to approval because we like to have the Torrington Area Health District sign off before a lot of things, not just things that require zoning permit. And this was missing, and I think it was kind of important to have in there. And then I just kind of reorganized it a little bit so that you could read it a little better. Okay, well, now you had the section that said swimming pools shall not be installed without obtaining a permit, which is correct, but I wanted to add in and other accessory structures because there's a variety of things that people can put in where we'd want to have information from Torrington area. And
But like a storage shed.
Yep.
Wouldn't have to go through Torrington Area Health, right?
It may. I mean, if it's on the other side of a huge property from where the septic system is, no, probably not. But it may, if it's like being proposed, you know, close to where the
I
where it
understand.
is,
Yep.
that type of thing. So that's that. And then we get into your brand new stormwater management regulations, and the entire thing here is new. Purpose and intent: the town of Thomaston seeks to maintain the natural environment of its watercourses and water bodies, to control pollution caused by stormwater runoff, and to control flooding caused by development. The town encourages innovative solutions and low-impact development techniques. This section is intended to regulate the development and redevelopment of properties in Thomaston with the goal to maintain post-development peak rate of stormwater runoff to a level that is less than or equal to pre-development conditions, manage quantity of runoff, and improve the water quality of the runoff. These regulations are intended to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of Thomaston's residents, to avoid adverse and cumulative impacts to downstream properties and structures, and to protect the integrity of our wetlands and watercourses. Implementation of these standards, in conjunction with adherence to the standards in section 8.2, which is the E&S ones we just mentioned, will minimize any unnecessary accelerated erosion and sedimentation and result in compliance with MS4 requirements as amended. Applicability. And this is, I put this forward as a suggestion, but this is open to you in terms of who you want this to apply to. A stormwater management plan shall be prepared for every application for zoning permit, subdivision, site plan approval, and special permit where such application results in any one or more of the following: 1 or more acres of land disturbance, 1 or more acres of impervious surface upon project completion, an existing impervious surface shall count towards it. So if they have a certain amount and now they're expanding it, and that combined total goes over the 1 or more acres, they're now required to submit a stormwater management plan. Hang on 1 minute, okay. Any commercial or industrial activity, any application with 4 or more dwelling units, any project involving a new road, a private road, shared driveway serving 3 or more lots, any project where the impervious surface area after construction exceeds 30% of the total site area. And again, existing impervious surface shall be counted.
So go up to the first bullet again.
Okay,
1 or more acres of land disturbance.
yeah,
Wasn't it more towards the beginning? Didn't we have a half acre as the
that was for the erosion and sedimentation control plan, and that's kind of like mandated. It has to be at the half acre point.
so shouldn't this be a half an acre to kind of jive with that?
You could. I've seen it. I looked through several different, this is an amalgamation of Ridgefield, of New Hartford, and Torrington. I've seen the 1 or more acres comes from New Hartford, but I have seen like Ridgefield had this really complicated chart where it went up based on lot size, and there were like 10 different layers to it, you know, in terms of if you're greater than this, but less than that. So, I mean, we could do however you want to define this and however you think best serves the goal here.
What do you think, Tom? Half an acre or 1 acre?
I don't see a problem having it different. I'd leave it at 1 acre.
All right. How about you, Bill? What do you think?
I go along with Tom on this.
Okay. Brian, what do you think?
I just kind of listening. I don't really have too much to input. I guess I'd have to look at the whole thing and try. I haven't really read it either, so.
Tisk, tisk, tisk.
Okay, Elizabeth, what do you think? 1 acre or half an acre?
I'm not sure. I guess I would lean towards 1 acre.
All right, so let's leave it at 1 for now. We can always go back later if we decide to change our minds.
Having been in New Hartford when this reg was put in, I can tell you that there was a definite desire to try not to catch most of the single family residences. And most single family residence properties, again, if they're over a certain amount of acreage, they're not going to go, if we already have the 30%, most people are under that anyway. So something like this would be super huge. So there was a definite desire not to go quite so much there. I mean, obviously, if somebody's putting in something super massive, then yeah, you want to catch that. But they did change it later on after I was no longer there. They have a lake, and the zone that they created all around the lake, they did change it so even the houses would be included in this. But initially, at least, there was that desire not to have necessarily all the single family residences caught in this. And then here we're just listing the goals for the stormwater drainage design and facilities. Preserve the pre-development site hydrology, preserve and protect streams, channels, wetlands, etc. Prevent pollution of drinking water sources, both above and below ground. Prevent pollutants from entering receiving waters and wetlands. Preserve undisturbed natural areas from development and minimize grading and clearing. Avoid compaction of soils and restore the original properties and porosity of the soil. Manage stormwater runoff in a manner that maintains or improves the physical and biological characteristics of existing drainage systems. And in accordance with our, that's the MS4 permit. Consideration of low impact development techniques, best management practices, runoff reduction, site planning, and development practices. This is a little bit of a typo. I'll have to edit this because this was a reference to something from the Ridgefield that we're not incorporating, so I'll have to delete that. Ensure that the new peak rate of runoff is less than or equal to the existing condition peak rate of runoff for a 1, 10, and 50-year storm event based on a 24-hour storm duration. Utilize infiltration where appropriate to reduce stormwater runoff rate and volume to improve stormwater quality and to recharge groundwater. And in general, the preferred methods for meeting the objectives of post-construction runoff control include the installation of site design best management practices and/or low impact development measures described below, which can be considered as both stormwater pretreatment facilities and primary treatment facilities as applicable. And some definitions therein. I won't put you to sleep by reading the whole thing. So here we get to the actual plan submission. Application submission. Proposed stormwater drainage system shall be shown on a stamped and signed site plan prepared by a Connecticut licensed professional engineer using current engineering practices and shall be designed to create post-development runoff that is less than or equal to existing conditions. Plan shall incorporate BMPs, LID, and other stormwater treatment general procedures to manage the quantity of stormwater and to treat the quality of stormwater in order to comply with the goals for stormwater drainage design and facilities. Application submissions shall include calculations and documentation to support and identify the methods used in the design of the stormwater management drainage facilities and compliance with the Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual as amended, another Bible. Any application submission subject to these regulations shall be accompanied by a written narrative describing the proposed project, and the following stormwater management requirements shall be included and/or addressed. Analysis performed in accordance with the Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual, providing a comparison of the pre-development conditions with the post-development conditions. Attenuation of the post-development peak runoff rate. All drainage conveyance systems, whether structural or non-structural, shall be analyzed, designed, and constructed to accommodate existing upstream off-site runoff and developed on-site runoff post-development. Provisions for the treatment of surface runoff in order to minimize the discharge of pollutants into existing conveyance systems, wetlands, watercourses, and water bodies. Measures to control soil erosion and sedimentation control during construction and post-development in accordance with section 8.2, that's the E&S section. Pre-treatment of runoff prior to discharging to the site's primary stormwater treatment facility or to any infiltration facility. Primary treatment of stormwater runoff at all points where stormwater discharges from the site into an existing stormwater conveyance system, wetlands, or watercourse. All stormwater conveyance systems, storm sewer systems, surface drainage systems, detention systems, swales, channels, and similar facilities shall be appropriate for the site and shall be designed in accordance with current engineering practice, addressing the goals and requirements of these regulations. Now, since they're putting in stormwater infrastructure, and obviously you need to know that it's going to function when it needs to function. There's the issue of stormwater maintenance and a drainage system agreement and plan. All on-site facilities shall be properly maintained by the owner of such so that they do not become nuisances. Maintenance of all proposed stormwater drainage systems facilities not dedicated to the town shall be the sole responsibility of the property owner or property association. All stormwater control structures located on private property, whether dedicated to the town of Thomaston or not, shall be accessible at all times for town inspection. Where runoff control structures have been accepted by the town of Thomaston for maintenance, access easements shall be provided. All projects shall have a stormwater management best management practice maintenance agreement with the town of Thomaston. This document shall address items of routine maintenance, frequency of maintenance, the party responsible for maintenance, accessibility for town inspection, and an emergency operation plan. The document must be filed as an agreement with the town prior to the issuance of any zoning certificate of compliance for the development. Reporting. All properties with a stormwater management plan shall submit an annual report to the Planning and Zoning Commission no later than September 15th. The report shall comply with town requirements, whatever they may be. Reporting is a part of our permit, so that's why that's in there. Shared stormwater management facilities. When the commission determines that engineering, aesthetics, and economic factors make combined retention or other drainage facilities more practical, the commission may permit several developers to construct joint facilities, provided that the maintenance agreement is filed on the land records for each property involved. Commission may require bonding or the creation of a maintenance fund for combined retention areas. So that's if you got two properties close together and it makes more sense for them to work together on this, they can. All development subject to these regulations shall include provisions for the treatment of stormwater runoff in order to minimize the transport of pollutants into existing conveyance systems, wetlands, watercourses, water bodies, and into the groundwater in accordance with the town of Thomaston's policy to comply with the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Permit Phase 2 requirements for post-construction runoff control. Big mouthful, but we are required. The commissioner or its agent may require a post-development pollutant renovation analysis for business or commercial site development where warranted by the proposed use and potential for pollutant runoff. Specifically, all stormwater management facilities, including but not limited to stormwater conveyance systems, stormwater systems, surface drainage systems, detention systems, drainage swales and channels shall be designed to, 1, remove at least 80% of the average total suspended solids. 2, remove all oils, greases, and vehicle fluids from the post-development runoff prior to the runoff leaving the site to the maximum extent possible. 3, incorporate stormwater management practices that mitigate potential increases in the temperature of the runoff. And then that's just information as to how to calculate. Stormwater quantity, peak runoff attenuation. All development subject to these regulations shall attenuate the post-development peak runoff rate, can be accomplished by limiting impervious coverage, increasing travel times the longer the water is in motion. You know,
More it sinks in.
Exactly. Utilizing pervious pavers and pavements, introducing groundwater recharge, constructing stormwater detention facilities or other approved methods. Following standards shall be applied. Increases in peak runoff must be attenuated for the 1, 10, and 50-year storms based on data for 24-hour storm duration upon certification from a Connecticut licensed engineer. The commission or local review authority may waive the peak runoff attenuation criteria for sites that discharge to a large river or lake where the development area is less than 5% of the watershed area upstream of the development site. Rainfall data for Thomaston shall be obtained from, and then this is a website where they can get this information. And additional attenuation may be required where the development is in close proximity to designated special flood hazard areas designated on federal flood insurance rate maps for the town of Thomaston. And other approvals may be required. Just saying it doesn't relieve the person from getting the necessary inland wetlands permit. The review that's necessary if they're doing work in a floodplain or any other local, state, or federal agency. And then this just lists some references where they can go to get some information that would help to comply with this section. And there you go.
I think you did a pretty good job. I think it's pretty thorough.
Yeah, it took a little while reading through but I think we put together a pretty decent plan. I mean, I think that the main thing, and again, I do want Joe Perugini to take a look and just give his sign off. We had talked about this briefly way back, there was a special permit you guys were looking at for a site on Waterbury Road, and we had talked about stormwater management regulations back then. So I have talked with him previously about this, but I do want to get his seal of approval on it as well. And I haven't done that, gotten that yet. And my being out this week is complicated.
Well, we have to schedule public hearings before we can do anything with this anyway, so.
Yes. But the main question was going to be where you wanted this to apply. And if you're good with how it's written, great. If you didn't want to include certain things, or you did want to include certain things that I didn't list, by all means, let me know.
I think it's okay, the way it sits. I don't know if anybody else has any comments.
I agree with that, Ralph. This time you want.
I mean, when, like I said, we have to schedule public hearings for this, and I kind of would like to be at a point where we could do those public hearings in person. Because this is not a trivial item.
No.
So, we have time to
Absolutely.
mull this over, and make tweaks if we want. I would say, keep it on. I would say keep it on the agenda, like we do for the commercial vehicle thing, and
Yeah.
as thoughts pop up, we can address it.
Okay. So if there's no further on this one, I have the two others.
So I don't have any further comments. I don't know if nobody else does. I would say let's jump into the next one.
Okay, hang on one second.
And I don't
Ralph,
see
thank
any.
you.
Say again, Bill.
No, I agree with you, Ralph, on this.
Thank you.
Okay, hang on one second. And all righty. This is a little easier, so hopefully this will go a little quicker. This is your special permit section. And just so you know, the numbering here is a little different too, because that's another reorganization where I'm basically putting the zoning permit stuff, the site plan stuff, and the special permits together all in one area because they're all the different levels of approval. But you may recall we were talking, I think it was in regard to the commercial vehicles, and we were talking about permit revocation and that.
Yeah.
And Attorney Byrne was on the line for that. So he had said he was going to get us a template for that. So he did get me that. So when I went to go and put that in with our current regulation, I just saw a couple things to update this with, and that's where this came from. So the application, nothing really changes here other than sedimentation and erosion control plan. Since we now would ostensibly have the regulation you just looked at, I crossed that all out and just put as per the requirements in section 8.2.
Mm-hmm.
And just renumbered that. Again, no real changes there. Just some, this was another thing where it was a kind of like a run-on paragraph, so I just kind of cleaned it up a little bit. This, like, anytime I send you anything and it's in blue, that means I have a question. So this was something that Attorney Byrne had commented back, and he was fine with this requirement.
Go up to, let me read that again.
Prior to endorsement, the applicant shall file a bond and execute an agreement, oh, and there's a typo there, I'll catch. An agreement to guarantee completion within 2 years. Because this was similar to, again, that other, one of the other applications we've had where the site plan is good for 5 years. However, we can require the actual structure to be there sooner.
Yeah, I think that, well, let's just pause here for a minute. I think the 2 years is good. Does any other commission member have any comments on that? All right, Stace, keep going.
Okay. This was related. So, and again, he was fine with that. And I did, not that this was anything bad, but this is more under conditions, so I moved it over to conditions rather than having it in here. And you'll see, actually, I took it from here and put it down here. And I had a question here and he was fine with this as well, so that can stay in.
What's public convenience? That's the first time I've come across that.
Well, and that was part of it. A, I wanted to know if we could, and B, I wanted to double check if those things, I mean, we do have a couple, as we scroll down, you're going to see we have something else that I took out because they no longer do it. So this is one of the things that I want to check and see if that's still something that's even a thing. Inland wetlands, I just wanted to clarify this because the state statutes require that any application to you guys can't be filed any sooner than the same day that the wetlands application is filed. So this is just clarifying that and stating that if a special permit application involves an activity regulated pursuant to the requirements of the inland wetlands regulations, the applicant shall demonstrate that an application to the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission was submitted not later than the day such application is filed with the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then this is also just clarifying that you cannot render a decision until you have received a report with the Wetlands Commission's final decision. And this is the thing that I was mentioning earlier where that's not something that's DEP does anymore, so that we may as well delete it. So that's why the other one I had it in blue, just to confirm that that's still a thing, since this was no longer a thing. And here we get to the revocation of special permit. And again, this is in the overarching general special permit area. So this applies to all special permits because we wanted to have the ability, not just for the commercial vehicles, but anywhere you might be issuing a special permit. So whenever the commission shall find, in the case of any special permit heretofore or hereafter granted, that any of the terms, conditions, or restrictions upon which such approval was granted are not being complied with, the commission may rescind and revoke such approval after giving due notice to the owner of record of the property involved and the applicant for said special permit. Revocation of a special permit shall be considered by the commission at a public hearing. Notice of the public hearing and the procedures to be followed shall be as prescribed by Connecticut state statute. Continuation of a use for which a special permit approval has been rescinded or revoked shall constitute a violation of these regulations. So, and simply, if it required a public hearing to get the special permit approved, in fairness, it should be a public hearing to, if you're going to consider revoking it. And then the same procedures that you would follow for any public hearing, you'd follow for this. And Attorney Byrne wanted you guys to know that this has actually withstood a court challenge. It didn't go all the way up to like Supreme or anything, but it was somebody whose permit was revoked, did appeal, and the reg stood.
Good.
Okay. That was gonna be my next question. Do we have to file something on the land records like,
It would
like
make se- yeah, it would make
revocation of the
sense.
permit, because we put something on land records for the permit. We have to file another.
That's a very good
document.
point. Yeah, we should definitely do that. And that can just be a simple statement that the permit issued on such and such date, filed at, and in the book and the page number, was rescinded by the town of Thomaston Planning and Zoning Commission on such and such date.
So I think what Elizabeth is saying is
Want it in
under,
here?
yeah, under this
Okay.
section, do we want to make another bullet that says that?
Okay,
Right, both. Like, yeah, do we want to do it? And if we do it, should it be listed out in this?
no, that's actually
Process, I
a
guess.
very good
Yeah.
point, because otherwise somebody searching the land records is not gonna know that you revoked it. Okay, good catch. Okay, so that's this one. Moving right along. Okay, we'll do the next one. Your last one for the evening. Okay, you will recall we talked about the possibility of permitting detached accessory apartments.
Now, yeah, now, I think the last time we talked about it, I think, in general, I think the commission was against it. Can we just review that one point, again? Tom, just remind us, what were your opinions on that?
Considering some proposed regulation changes with the state, I would not be opposed to detached accessory dwellings.
How about you, Elizabeth?
I wouldn't be. I think it's in keeping with some of the other definitions, so.
Bill,
I'm not opposed.
thanks. Bill, how do you feel on that?
Yeah, I'm was the same mind as Elizabeth.
Okay. How about you, Brian?
From what I can remember, I didn't have any issues with it if they had the lot size and the room and for the building.
Okay. All right. Maybe I jumbled up what I was thinking, or maybe I just misread it last time. But all right. So in general, without
Ralph, I think I may have been opposed to it, but I've read something recently where it might get jammed down our throat anyway. So.
oh, I know what you're talking about. All
Yeah,
right. All right. So let's.
Excuse me 1 minute. Hi, this is
Yes.
Sally Burlett. Can I ask a question? What
ahead.
exactly is an accessory apartment?
it's an accessory dwelling unit on a property. By definition, being accessory, it's smaller than the single-family residence that's on the same property. It's different from a two-family. A two-family would traditionally be two equally sized units on one property, whereas this is more of a situation where you have a single-family dwelling and some portion of that dwelling, or if this goes through, some portion of an accessory structure on the property could have an apartment there's a size provision in here in terms of how big it is permitted to be, but it would not be allowed to be anything more than 40% of the size of the primary dwelling on the property.
Okay, would that exclude trailer type accessory apartments on the building?
It would most certainly exclude trailer type accessory apartments, because that's we're only talking about fixed buildings.
Yeah.
That's
not-
okay.
nothing
I'm
with
sorry.
wheels.
Yes, that's okay. I'm new and I'm learning. Thank
No
you.
problem. So, as with anything else, we have some new definitions. Now, since The regulations kind of interchanged, accessory apartments, dwelling units, yada, yada. So I wanted to get everything all into one set of definitions. So we didn't have to define everything. So we've got your existing definition of dwelling. And then we've got this, and this one I want to draw your attention to. A building attached to a permanent foundation and which provides complete housekeeping facilities for one family. Now, here's the addition that from an enforcement standpoint, I feel is important. In general, a dwelling unit shall be inferred when there is a sleeping area, a separate kitchen or kitchen area, and a separate bathroom or bathroom area with a toilet and bathtub shower. And then here, this is already in there. Lodging in a single room occupancy hotel or motel should not be considered a dwelling unit. But this
Hey.
part is the addition that for enforcement purposes, I would like to have in there.
Yeah, and I think also you need to define family. Or,
We already have a definition for family.
oh, okay, all right, okay.
Stacy, what is that definition?
I knew you were gonna ask me. Hang on one second. I know it's 5 people, but the exact wording of it, give me a second.
I thought what was in the regulation before was 5, no more than 5 unrelated individuals.
That sounds right. I am not proposing any change to that, so.
So this is a little bit off the subject, but could a single family home have a family of 4, all related, plus 4 more unrelated?
Well, if we go down, this will be addressed further on in the regulations.
Okay,
Because you did, and I didn't change that at all. You had that already existing in there. Okay, hang on, I'm getting to it. Family, 1 or more related individuals, but not more than 5 unrelated individuals living as a housekeeping unit. Okay, where did we go? Alrighty. So then from there, we've got the accessory dwelling unit, a secondary dwelling unit on a single family residential property, which is an accessory use and is a complete independent living facility with provisions within the unit for cooking, eating, sanitation, and sleeping. Multiple family dwelling unit, a dwelling or group of dwellings on one lot containing separate living units for 4 or more families, but which may have separate or joint entrances, services, or facilities. This definition includes condominiums, cooperatives, townhouses, and garden apartments. Single family dwelling unit, arranged, intended, or designed to be occupied by 1 family. And then 2 family and 3 family, since we allow 2 families and 3 families in RA 15. A building arranged, intended, or designed to be occupied exclusively as a residence for 3 families living independently of each other, or for 2 families living independently of each other. So then we get into the actual accessory apartment regulation. And I kept all of this. And this is where we start to see some changes. The accessory dwelling unit shall, 1, be clearly subordinate to the principal unit. 2, have the same exterior appearance as the principal unit. 3, maintain the character and scale of adjoining residences. And 4, blend into the existing neighborhood. Obviously, if we're now thinking we're going to allow detached, we got rid of that. An accessory dwelling unit may be located as an addition to the principal unit, quote, attached, or in an accessory structure on a lot with a principal single-family dwelling unit, provided the accessory structure meets the requirements for front, side, and rear yard setbacks, detached. That's for any, by and large, any new ones. However, the commission may approve the conversion of an existing accessory structure for accessory dwelling unit use where the existing structure does not meet the yard setback requirements under the following conditions. The lot and structure are located in RA 15. The structure was constructed at least 10 years ago. So basically, that's your escape valve if you want it. We don't have to do that. I'm just it's the food for thought.
So let me pose a scenario and see where it would fall. So under our farming regs,
Okay,
a farmer could construct a building on the property line. So let's say that there's a barn on the property line and it's been there for a good number of years.
yes,
And now the farmer wants to convert it to a detached accessory apartment. How would that fare under these regs?
if they are in the RA 15,
Yes, let's say they are.
then they conceivably could do it.
But they won't.
I note that it says the commission may approve. It does not say shall approve.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Well, this is a special permit too, right? So this is-
Exactly, exactly.
could be case by case in a sense. We don't have to be
True.
follow that same. It could be dependent on the more immediate neighborhood rather than the zone, maybe, or depending on like that's a situation like Ralph gave, I guess.
Yeah. And, you
But-
know, again, it's food for thought, food for discussion. You can decide, you know, ruminate on it. The owner of the property shall be the primary occupant of either the principal unit or the accessory dwelling unit. For attached accessory dwelling units, direct interior access, this is the same as now, without going outside, shall be provided between the accessory dwelling unit and the principal unit. This requirement shall not apply, obviously, to a detached. For attached,
Is there a typo there? Should ACU be ADU?
yes, I guess I don't know why I did that. I was wondering that myself. I was in a text amendment frenzy. I guess a couple things slipped through. For attached accessory dwelling units, there should be exterior access to the unit, separate from interior access, and such access shall be from the side or rear only. This is all what's in there existing already. Accessory dwelling unit shall contain no more than one bedroom. Whether located within the principal dwelling unit or in an accessory structure, and this is all existing in your reg already. The unit shall not exceed 750 square feet or 40% of the total area of the home after proposed construction or conversion, whichever is less. And again, you can change that number if you want. The numbers on that are all over the map, but if you're happy with that, we can keep it exactly as is. The unit shall contain a full kitchen and full bathroom. I have this in blue because we're okay keeping it in. Attorney Burns said that was fine, but I didn't know practicality. If you're looking at detached units, this may or may not make sense any longer. So we can
This
discuss.
is a current one. I'm sorry, that's existing.
This is existing right now, and obviously it makes sense for an accessory that's attached. For a detached, I don't know if you wanted that in there. Now, I mean, it's also, I know that one of the towns I used to work in, they had a requirement that the accessory was within a certain distance to the main house. And then that makes something like this possible. So, I mean, should be maybe another food for thought. And this is a new accessory dwelling unit on a lot of, and then you can change this again too if you want, square feet or 40,000 square feet or less shall be served by public sewer and public water.
That's 40,000 is 1
And
acre.
just about 1 acre.
Shy of an
So you
acre,
could
yeah.
change that, you know, when we're considering more the RA 15 people, maybe I was debating on that as I was putting this together. You might want to change that to 15,000. Available parking. That's all the same as what's in there right now. The thing that I added in is the commission may require that parking spaces be screened from public view or located behind the principal unit. And this isn't in there, but I think it absolutely should be. No more than one accessory dwelling unit permitted per lot.
Mm-hmm.
And here's another,
Casey, that's regardless of lot size?
this, yeah,
Yeah, that was your
as it's
intent?
written, yes.
Okay.
Now, this is another, this kind of goes to the point of, we've been talking about apartments that have been around for a while. And did you want me to bring them in for special permits or not, or what have you? So one of the towns has this, so I put this in here for, again, for your reading pleasure. I mean, if you don't want it, we don't have to have it, but just so you could see it. An accessory dwelling unit created without the benefit of zoning approval before the effective date of this amendment, and that's when you first had the accessory apartment regulations, which to the best of my ability to track it down was October 22nd, 2013, may receive a zoning permit issued by the ZEO, where the ZEO determines that a statement from the Torrington Area Health District, the Town of Thomaston Water Pollution Control Authority, and/or Connecticut Water indicates that there is adequate water supply and sewage disposal systems. 2, documentation certifies that the owner of the lot resides in the premises. And 3, evidence is satisfactory that the accessory dwelling unit was in actual existence on October 22nd, 2013. So this would be an avenue for the old ones to get approval.
I don't see that. I don't see that as a bad thing necessarily. What I do see is that it'll cut down on a lot of nuisance work that you have to do and a lot of nuisance worry that the property owners will have to go through.
Yeah.
Have you found in most cases that there are, I think from what I've seen so far, there are additional hookups that exist, or so I guess, are they oftentimes legal already in that sense, I guess?
There's a
But
good,
but it just never, it's on record with the assessor, but it never came to ours.
there's a good amount.
You know.
We keep a list, and
Yeah.
there is a decent sized list that the assessor, me, and Bert over at the WPCA are all talking about.
So oftentimes they
one-
meet that.
You have one that's on your agenda for special
For this evening.
that's going to be, that has been around for nearly 30 years. So yeah, it definitely would help insofar as it gives an avenue, an avenue in for these ones that have been around for a while. And again, I leave that up to you, but arguably if it's been
That's
around
by
that,
zoning permit? Sorry,
Yes.
that's by zoning permit. Yeah, administrative for you. Okay.
like for instance, the one that's been around for nearly 30 years. I mean, yes, for any accessory apartment, we need a letter from Torrington area, but obviously if they haven't had an issue in 30 years, chances are good their septic system can handle it. You know what I mean? So again, that's another food for thought thing. And then the special permit criteria, I did some tweaking here. This is all the same, but what I'm doing is proposing getting rid of the initial occupants residing in the apartment after construction or conversion and for no less than 5 years thereafter shall be related by blood, marriage, or adoption. I can't keep track of that. I really can't. And honestly, it's difficult. That's a kind of hard one to chase down.
Well, the reason it was in there in the first place is because after the 5 years, what we were thinking is if they wanted to continue to have that apartment and it was not the a relative, then it would get set up such that it would get counted towards our affordable housing standard.
Which is great. And I do think, obviously, we're at 5%, we're not at 10%, so we want to be looking at that in any way we can. What I'm proposing is a little bit different, where we get rid of these. And instead, if the person is willing to make it an affordable accessory dwelling unit, then that can be approved by zoning permit rather than special permit.
So we could do it without the words about the 5 years. And did we have to do it that way for a certain reason? Like, that's not like a state statute that it had to be that way before we're eligible to convert? Okay, so we could do it right up front if we want.
No, this was the first time I'd ever seen that. I mean, basically the challenge for me is keeping track of that and hunting people down at the 5-year mark. And okay, do you swear that you're a relative, that kind of thing.
Well, you're saying we could sort of skip this and go right to the affordable housing if we chose.
Yeah, and the carrot is
so we didn't have to do this for that. We didn't have to do the 5-year thing to do that. It's just that. Oh, okay.
That was just a number we pulled out of the air at the time.
Yeah. I mean, and if you want to keep that,
I thought we had to. Okay. I thought to meet the state statute for affordable housing to like slip under that rule. I thought we had to do that first, and then we could just add it to our number. So I thought there was a specific reason, but if there's not, then I'm not my personal opinion, I'm not opposed to just putting it from the
there
start.
are requirements to have it be counted as affordable, and they are incorporated in here in terms of covenants and restrictions filed on the land records, making sure that it is in fact affordable. Prior to the occupancy by the initial affordable housing tenants and thereafter by January 31st each year, and upon each change of tenant, the owner shall certify that it's rented at or below the maximum rate prescribed in Connecticut General Statutes 8-30G, and the tenant has certified to the owner that the tenant's income does not exceed 80% of the area median income. So yeah, there are things we do need to have in place in order for it to count as affordable housing. But that's not one of them. And then I just here got rid of RA 40 because you do not have an RA 40 anymore. And then I also got rid of renewal because, again, special permits run with the land. We have a procedure that we're going to have in place for revocation. So but for like temporary type things and the sand and gravel operations and such like that, there's really no renewal for special permits. So that's that. And then this is another, I want to draw your attention to, important. Permit revocation, termination of accessory apartment use. The special permit shall be revoked pursuant to the procedures in, what we just spoke about, that Attorney Byrne gave us that revocation language. If the property owner no longer resides on site, and if a property owner wishes to voluntarily discontinue the accessory dwelling use and/or the special permit has been revoked, the unit's kitchen facilities must be removed by the property owner, and such removal shall be confirmed by the zoning enforcement officer. Kitchen facilities consist of individual units of refrigerator, stove and sink, and associated cabinetry, counters, and related electrical and plumbing hookups. And that is to help with yet another enforcement issue. Because when I speak with somebody, I give them two options. You can go through this regulation as it currently stands and get it approved and blessed formally, or you can take it out. Okay, well, how do I take out such that I'm not considered an accessory apartment anymore? And realistically, the best way to do that is to have them remove the kitchen facilities. And that's all.
So, same comment as before. I think it's good. I think you did a thorough job. But like the other ones, it needs to go through public hearing, and
Absolutely.
I'd like to, wait until we can have a real public hearing.
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, leave them on the agenda
Okay.
so that if we think of anything.
Okay. But if there's anything glaring that anybody definitely wants to see or doesn't want to see, just let me know.
I just have one quick question, just because you put the date of, you sort of gave a date, it would be, I guess, sort of, for lack of a better word, sort of grandfathered under the, with criteria. Is that, so this is for only the detached ones though, or is that also meant to cover some of the interior?
That covers any.
Or attached, I mean, it would
This will-
cover any, okay, that's all,
Yeah.
thanks.
So if you're good with that, those are all the amendments that I worked on since last month.
You've been busy.
Yeah. Yeah. The stormwater management one was the most painful though. So here we go. Stop share. There you go. Okay. All right.
So, that's it for old business, right?
Correct.
And then on to new business, special permit application number 2021-02-08-01 per section 21.10 for existing accessory apartment at 210 Cedar Mountain Road in an RA 80 zone, and the applicant is Andrew Lucibella.
I'm not sure if he's on. He did provide all the information. Okay, here we go. This is painful. Okay, come on. So here's a picture of the property. And here is, let me figure out how to rotate this.
It's under view. You gotta go up to the menu under view. Rotate, top.
Oh, duh, right in front of my face. Okay. There we go. Oh, I got it right the first time. Okay. So, here. This is the top floor of it's a ranch, raised ranch. This is the top floor. The apartment is on the first floor. There's a walkout here. And the apartment would be this area here. This is existing. This is a situation where it was the property was being offered for sale. Realtor.com advertised the apartment. I was notified by the assessor, and I reached out to the previous owner, and then Mr. Lucibella, when he was purchasing the property, called to ask questions. And I explained again the process, what he could do, either removing it or making it legal. So he wanted to try and make it legal.
Does it meet all the current regs? especially the 750 square feet or 40%.
I have to do the math. I just got, I had wanted some information from him because I wasn't clear whether or not this was included in it or not. And I just heard back, his brother is helping him with the application, and I just heard back from him today that this is in fact, so I have to sit down and do the calculation.
Hey, Stacy, when you put the cursor along the outline of the accessory apartment, you went down the wall next to fridge and then across.
Yes,
The
this
front
is
of
the
laundry.
laundry. This is the house, the laundry for the house. So there's a door. There's a door.
Okay, so the way that looks is there is no interior access to the main floor from the accessory apartment.
Well, it
You
would
have
be
to go-
right here. The stairs are
you have-
here.
That's a stairway, right?
You have to go outside of it to get to that stairwell.
Well, it's direct interior. I'm not. Because the front door is here, you come down the stairs and then you're right here.
That door is for the laundry room, Tom.
No, I understand that, but Stacy did the cursor down the right-hand wall next to fridge,
Yeah,
straight down to the wall for the laundry room, so that stairwell is not part of the accessory apartment, according to what was just described.
Well, we would never count the stairwell as part of the accessory department.
The regulation says there has to be an interior access from the apartment to the main dwelling.
And there is, we're looking at it through that stairwell.
yeah, I'm
But
not
that's not
understanding.
part of the accessory apartment.
We
Well, it's
never
direct-
count, we never count stairs as part of the apartment because it's
You
not
don't
living
count, you
space.
don't count the area of them. But according to the regulation, doesn't it have to be part of the accessory apartment?
It says
It has
direct interior access,
access.
which I don't, and maybe I've been interpreting it wrong, but to my mind, there is direct interior access because you go up these stairs, you're here, you go down the stairs, you're here, and you can walk in. There's an outer door that leads into the inner door to the apartment.
Okay, I was gonna say, is that the difference? Is there a door? So you don't access it till you go through the door, is what you're saying?
It's, my understanding of that was that it doesn't have its own on the front separate entranceway to make it look like a two-family or something.
I don't see any interior door to the apartment.
You don't have to go outside to get from one unit to the other.
No,
Correct.
you do not.
That's what interior access means to me.
Make that a little bigger, Stacy, so we can look at that area in more detail.
Yeah, no, actually, there is no door there.
Right,
This
the
is the
door
door.
is on the laundry room. That's the only door
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah.
you go to the bottom of the stairs and you take a right and you're in the apartment.
Yeah, so there would have to be a door here.
Oh, the left is not part of it, the left.
Yeah, this is the door to the laundry room. And then this is the door to this closet. And then here's the door to the office.
Which is not part of the
This is not.
apartment.
This
I
is.
see. So there is sort of a separate, whatever, there's a distinct line drawn, I guess, beyond the,
Yeah, there, it would make sense for, well, you can't have it right there, actually. Because otherwise then the laundry room's in. So they'd kind of have to do something like that.
Hmm.
Well,
Does the
in any
laundry
case,
room, is that like a closet though, so that wouldn't count?
No, the laundry room, my understanding is it wouldn't count, but I think it's a communal, it's the main house because there isn't one up here.
it's the only laundry room in the house.
Yeah,
Okay.
Well, in any case, this has to have a public hearing, so
correct.
why don't we just have a motion to accept the application and set the public hearing to our April meeting, which would be April 7th? Yeah, April 7th. And we'll go from there. But in the meantime, you can check on some of those details, Stacy.
Sure.
So anybody want to make a motion?
Tom Mueller, so moved.
Thanks. Is there a second to the motion?
Elizabeth Jamison, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? The only thing I want to say, Stacy, is that office area looks like it could easily be another bedroom, so we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, but I think there's going to be something needed there.
Okay. All right, so let's see. Tom Mueller, how do you vote on the motion?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Elizabeth Jamison, how do you vote?
Elizabeth Jamison, aye.
Bill Guerrera, how do you vote?
Bill Guerrero, aye.
And Brian Davis, how do you vote?
Brian Davis, aye.
And Ralph Salone also votes aye, so that motion carries unanimously, Stacy.
Okay.
And then let's see.
You hear this on the iPhone?
Okay.
Next on our agenda is a special permit application number 2021-02-25-01 per section 4.5.c.12 for live outdoor entertainment at Clocktown Brewery, 135 South Main Street, and the applicant is George LaCapra. Is the applicant here tonight?
I don't think I saw him on. I did give him the link, but.
I mean, it's the same kind of deal. It's a
Yeah.
special permit application, so we have to set a public hearing anyway, so.
In essence, they're looking to have outdoor live entertainment on the patio. He's listed the days and the hours. The only thing is, and I'll have him cross this out, he's actually hoping from 12 to 10.
So if somebody wants to make a motion to accept this application and set the public hearing for our April 7th meeting, that'd be great.
Tom Mueller, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
Elizabeth Jamison, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion?
Question,
This is the time.
does this in any way impact the liquor permit with the state?
He, when he got it, he put this in on there. At that point, he did the liquor permit with the patio addendum, and he did check off live entertainment on there when he did that.
Okay, because I don't remember that being on the sign that was posted outside. Maybe it was.
It was, when I signed off on it, he had it checked off.
Okay.
But I know at the time he said, because at the beginning he was only doing it indoor. And at the time he said, you know, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And now that we're coming up on the spring, that's now he wanted to get set up for the live entertainment outdoors.
Okay, does live entertainment automatically include amplified entertainment?
In his letter, he specified amplified would be included.
Okay. I have nothing else.
Anyone else? All right, Tom Mueller, how do you vote on the motion?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Elizabeth Jamison,
Elizabeth Jamison, aye.
Bill Guerrera,
Bill Guerrero, aye.
Brian Davis,
Brian Davis, aye.
and Ralph Salone also votes aye, so that motion carries unanimously too. The next on our agenda is an informal discussion with Tom Scarola of 218 Babbitt Road regarding a possible re-subdivision that would create a rear lot.
And we should definitely do that. He's been waiting all along, but just as a matter of information to you, we will need to hopefully vote on to the agenda another application after we're done speaking with him.
All right, we'll see how we're doing for time. So I see the applicant is here, correct?
Yes, hello, thank you.
Hi. Well, Stacy, you want to
Sure,
do a quick overview, bring everybody up to speed?
sure. Hang on one second. Let me pull up his property. Where did it go? Hang on one moment. And Mr. Scarola, what address on Babbitt? 213?
218.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty, Mr. Scarola has come into the office a couple times, looking to get the commission's consensus on a possible split of the property. And what he's essentially looking to do is there is a house existing right up here on the road on Babbitt and creating an access way here.
So we're not seeing that. All we're seeing is the
Oh.
agenda.
It would help if I shared the screen. Okay. Sorry about that.
There you go. You want to start over now?
Yes. So there's an existing house towards the street on Babbitt, and Mr. Scarola is looking to create an access way in to have it be essentially a rear lot with the bulk of the property back here. Now there's wetlands and other things, and he's prepared to do the engineering work necessary for that. But obviously before he goes and invests the time and the money into doing that, he wants to know if a rear lot is something that the commission, speaking generally, because you don't have an actual application in front of you right now, would be in theory okay with. We do have regs that speak to rear lots, but it is my understanding that traditionally rear lots are not encouraged by this commission. So we were looking for some clarity on that. Hang on one second, I'll pull up the pertinent reg and you guys can take a look.
I think it might help too if we saw where the proposed split was going to be.
And he did provide me a map. Did you email it to me, Mr. Scarola?
I gave it to you. I also have it right on my screen.
Okay, if the commission's amenable, I can temporarily allow him share his screen so you can see the actual drawing.
Yeah, why don't we do that? That'll be quicker.
Okay, sure.
Thanks.
Hang on one second.
Okay, and then I have to get to a certain document. Okay, now do I just go to share screen, guys?
Yes.
Okay, so let me get the right one up first. It's gonna be this.
Yeah, we don't want to be reading any emails to your
Yeah.
girlfriend.
Oh, no, apologize. And I have my, just so that you guys, I have my good friend, Steve Quappian, who helped me draw up the drawing here. And so he can help me ask questions. Thanks, you guys. So let's see.
Okay, you're all set?
Share. Host disabled participant screen sharing.
I just made you,
Okay, let's try it.
you should be able
Okay,
to
and here
now.
we go. Okay.
There you go.
Should I try to explain or have Steve try to explain?
Either or, I have no preference.
Well, I can actually explain it. It's, we're basically going along his, southern, property border with a 25-foot access for a driveway. It has approximately 6 acres in the back. And, conservatively, we laid it out with a 50-foot offset from every property side, a 3,000 square foot footprint. And, we know there's probably more than at least 2 acres of accessible building property back there. The wetlands are, we walked it the other week, and the wetlands are down below, and it's probably about a 20, 25 foot elevation change from where the wetlands are to where the upper side of the northwest property is. So we seem to feel it's pretty comfortable that we can get something in there. The septic system is based on a plan from 2020 and for a Woodbury lot for a 4-bedroom house. So we've allocated the square footage for the system and 2 or 3 times the allotment for reserve areas. So we on the surface it looks pretty good, but again, we just wanted to get a feel for what the zoning commission feels.
And the access would be part of the new lot that's going to be created, right?
That's correct. We're going to actually run it right alongside the southern property line, right straight to the back.
What's that? It almost looks like a bridge going across the driveway.
That is going to be a wetlands crossing, and it's going to have to be obviously engineered and field determined as to what we can actually put across there. It's going to be a pipe or something like that. So
How so this area doesn't have city water, city sewers, so the only does it have gas?
I don't believe it has gas, but Tom, it does have city sewer, correct?
For my house at 218 right here, I do.
Yeah.
And then
But you're
all of
showing showing a septic system for the split lot?
Yes, but that was actually something that I thought about, that maybe it's possible. It's like, whether we could do a pump station and actually pump up to the city sewer. So I don't know.
So Tom, if city sewers are available, aren't they required to tie in?
I guess that would be our question to you. So that's
Tom Mueller, you're muted.
I can see your lips moving, Tom, but we can't hear you.
If it's over a 2-acre lot, then no, it's not required. And if it's more than 100 feet from the sewer line, it is also not required.
Ah, okay, all right. And even though it's not required, if they chose to pursue that connection, would there be any issue with that?
Very well could be. It could be in a sewer avoidance area. Have to check the plan.
So there's a possibility that we actually do a pump station and pump up to the city sewer.
As long
There's
as,
a possibility that you might not be allowed to do that.
yeah.
Okay. Just out of curiosity.
So then, so you'll have at least electric utilities coming in, and are they going to be underground or are they going to be overhead?
That would be underground.
And so you're going to have to cross the wetlands with them, right?
Yes, if or they would be overground because of the wetlands issue, but we're going to bring them in one way or the other. So
So that's something that's going to have to be addressed So this is gonna have to go before the Inland Wetlands Commission, right, Stacy?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh,
And-
yeah, absolutely.
And they do know that, but as I mentioned, the question of whether or not a rear lot would be permitted kind of was the first question to get answered. You know, there was no sense going through all the engineering and everything else, only to hear from you guys that a rear lot was not permissible. So
So-
that,
Thank you.
So did you get the, Stacy, did you get the regs in front of you that apply to this?
yeah, hang on, I'm just, if you're done looking at this.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Just stop my share, right?
yeah,
There you go.
there we go. Who's ever got the dog, if you could just mute. Here we go. Okay. So here,
So in the absence of any other considerations, does this meet what the regs
it
require?
appear, you know, I mean, I haven't sat with it, but it does appear to, obviously pending the approval of wetlands, because it is going to have a regulated activities involved, but zoning wise, yes, it appears to. So yeah, this is the pertinent
What-
section.
And this requires a public hearing, right?
No,
But I think that it's,
I mean, I'd have to double check where it is in, oh, you mean because it's a re-subdivision?
yeah,
It may. I'd have to double check, but I believe it might.
but I think even if it doesn't, we would hold one because it's such a big change.
Can I ask why is it such a big change? I'm just out of curiosity.
Your change, that was basically a fallow field. Now you're putting a house and a septic system and a well on there.
Okay, just curious.
I mean, if it is in fact a re-subdivision, a public hearing is going to be necessary regardless. It's, but I would have to go back and we'd have to double check and confirm that.
Does it mean because again, what I'm trying to do is before I ever invested any money in engineering, because it's a lot of money, it's surveying. I want to find out, is it possible that at that, at that point, they could tell me no, or?
Well, you could get shut down at any point. I mean, if we hold a public hearing, regardless of what the commission says, you may have 100 neighbors show up that say they're opposed to it for whatever reason. Maybe they find an endangered species living there or something. I don't know.
I mean, oh, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Just the lot size and setbacks and not being too familiar with interior lots. Is there the frontage? We don't have like a frontage requirement for the driveway or for the existing house.
There is a requirement that it have the private unobstructed access way of 25 feet, which it met, contiguous with the rear lot.
Okay. So by those kind of numbers, it meets it meets it in writing by the definition as far as
Yeah,
dimensions.
The size requirement, it's double except for those in the RA 80, which this is. But it's a large lot. Acreage wise, it meets.
Yeah.
And it,
Setbacks
as
and the
shown,
width,
it can easily, as shown, I mean, obviously not having any information on the, specifically on the wetlands or anything, but as shown, it looks like it could, zoning wise, it could pass muster, but
Okay.
But I'm looking for clarification because again, my understanding was that rear lots were not encouraged. That's per my predecessor, but this is here in the regulations, so therefore I'm looking for guidance.
So, and I think the applicant would probably like a general temperature check of the commission.
Yes.
So,
So, I mean, obviously you can't vote or do anything else like that, but any comments of a general nature that you could provide to assist with this would be helpful.
so, myself in particular, I don't really have any comments one way or another, but there are a lot of steps that need to go through, that it needs to go through, and there are a lot of places where it could get shut down for one reason or another. Again, not even related to any opinions of the commission. So with that, I'll just pause a moment and see if any other commission member has anything to say along those lines.
Ralph, Brian Davis here. I don't have any issue with interior lots. It looks like, from what I can tell from the stuff, it's a wooded area now.
Very.
Is there any slope there? I know Babbitt Road can get hilly in spots, but
Yeah, it's the northwest corner of the property is very high and it steps down towards the wetlands, obviously.
yeah.
And the wetlands, based on the proposed map, there's a flat area around it which is going to exceed it, but we easily believe there's more.
Yeah. That's fine. I was just curious, but yeah, I don't have any issue myself personally with interior lots or any. If it's possible, I'm curious myself if it can be done, just because I have my eye on a piece of property behind me that would have to be divided from somebody else. So.
I guess from my perspective, I just think it, by definition, it could meet our regs. Just from the I'll only speak to the zoning, I guess, piece of it. But I feel like it would be appropriate to apply, I guess, under that, just given the numbers and the way it reads. And that's it, I guess, for me.
I would just suggest that to check with Bert Galpin at the treatment plant for sewer availability.
Thank you.
And there's going to be a well too. There's going to be a well and septic.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I guess you'll have to deal with the health district.
Yeah.
Depending which way you go. So that.
Yeah.
So they're going to have their own set of rules. So.
I appreciate it very much. I appreciate your help, folks. Before I ever get involved in, it's a lot. It's very expensive, but it's a possibility to. It's a beautiful lot back there. It's a beautiful piece of property. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to. So I appreciate your time.
Okay, and nothing is nothing's sure until the end. So
Sure. And then just could I ask, so when if I decided to do the engineering and then apply, and then if that passes and then I find out and I go through the Wetlands Commission, et cetera, those are the steps that I need to take.
wetlands first.
Yes, wetlands is first.
For us.
And I would suggest even before that, you resolve the question of the sewer versus the septic system. And if
Okay.
you are going the septic route, you would need to go and get everything from Torrington area. But
Right.
that's going to be part of the engineering that you do
Right,
at that point anyway.
right.
But just having that question answered will be helpful and will help inform your engineering.
Okay. But generally, it sounds like just in terms of spacing and offsets, and if indeed the wetlands and that, it meets the rest of the regulations, and that's why I wanted to talk to you guys. So I do appreciate it, because I just didn't want to move forward without checking with you guys.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm good. All right, well, let us know what you decide to do.
Okay, I appreciate it very much. Thanks, Mr. Salone. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Have a
Thanks
good night.
again. Thanks.
All right, next on our agenda is communications, reports of officer, staff, and committees.
Actually, before you get there, if I could just show you the one application that we got on Monday.
What's it an application for?
It's the other accessory apartment, the one I was mentioning, the one that's been there for 30 years.
My battery just went like.
Nah, let's hold on that for now.
Okay.
Well, no, because I remember I was.
Okay, Steve, you are still on and we can hear you.
No, I was out there because.
Okay, there we go.
Hello?
Okay, so we're not going to take that one up?
No, just put it on the agenda for next month.
Okay. All right.
So now onto the ZEO report.
And the short answer is I don't have a written report for you at this time. I do have.
That's because you were too busy doing text amendments.
Well, yeah, and then I was a little off my my routine when I got the call on Sunday evening that we are once again in quarantine. So yeah, I haven't been in the office since last Friday. So, and I normally prepare the report in like the Monday or Tuesday beforehand.
All right, is there a reason to go into? Yes, there is, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. I think there's that one you want to.
All right. Would somebody make a motion to go into executive session and to invite in Stacy?
Tom Mueller, so moved.
Is there a second?
Elizabeth Jamison, second.
Any discussion on the motion? Tom Mueller, how do you vote?
Tom Mueller, aye, at 9:25.
Elizabeth Jamison, how do you vote?
Aye. Elizabeth Jamison, aye.
Brian Davis, how do you vote? Brian Davis, how do you vote?
Sorry. Brian Davis, aye.
And Bill Guerrero, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Ralph Salone also votes aye, so the motion carries unanimously at 9:25.
Okay, the recording is paused.